Okay, now let's try to figure out how has Israel Adesanya been knocking out people left and right. I mean, the guy knocked out Robert Whittaker twice in their match, and now he has knocked out Paulo Costa as well. And both these fighters fought Yoel Romero in their previous fights. So how come Romero was not able to knock out these guys, but Adesanya did? I mean, it's not up for debate, right? That Romero has more power in his punches and kicks than Adesanya, right? Then how come Romero was not able to knock these guys out, but Adesanya did? I think it is because of a combination of three things. Number one is his speed. Punches and kicks are basically collisions, right? And one of the major things that determines the effects of a collision is its momentum. And momentum is equal to mass times velocity, and the rate of change of momentum is equal to force. So the amount of force you hit someone with is basically determined by how quickly you can change your momentum. Therefore, what Adesanya lacks in mass, he more than makes up for it in his speed. I mean, you can throw a bullet at someone and it most probably won't hurt them unless you aim for the eye. But if you throw the same bullet with the help of a gun, we all know what will happen. So what has changed? Only one thing, and that is speed. Imagine someone throwing a concrete brick at your face. It is gonna hurt, right? Now imagine that same person throwing the same brick with the help of a slingshot, this time at a much higher velocity. I think it doesn't require a genius to know that it will hurt a lot more. By the way, fun fact, the human bone is almost 4 times as strong as concrete. The second thing that enables Israel Adesanya to knock people out is his precision. Now we have heard a lot from Israel Adesanya and Conor McGregor that precision beats power, right? But what does it actually mean? Let me try to explain it, but first we need to know a little bit about the human brain's anatomy. So the human brain is covered by 3 layers of meninges, right? The dura mater, the arachnoid matter, and the pia mater. In between the pia and the arachnoid matter is a fluid called the cerebrospinal fluid. Imagine a jelly inside a fluid because the human brain is not rigidly fixed to the walls of the cranium, instead it is allowed to move slightly inside the cranium. So when the brain experiences physical trauma, like when you get hit in the face, what happens is that the brain hits the walls of the cranium, which releases or inhibits all sorts of neurotransmitters and causes electrical disturbances inside the brain. Basically, the brain goes haywire. It is like you dropping your phone, the phone hangs, right? And then you restart it and it starts working again. This is kind of what happens with the brain too. Also, inside the head and neck, there are certain receptors which regulate the flow of blood and oxygen to the brain. A hit to the head can cause these receptors to be disturbed, which causes the flow of blood and oxygen to be disturbed as well, which again causes unconsciousness, loss of the ability to control your limbs, basically knocking you out. But as you might know, not every hit to the face causes a knockout. Only those hits cause a knockout which are able to rotate the head and neck and cause the brain to accelerate or move inside the cranium. So the important question is, what areas of the head to hit to cause a knockout? And the answer to that is the chin or the jaw. And what areas are most unlikely to cause a knockout? The answer to that is the forehead. Believe it or not, a hit to the forehead is most unlikely to cause a knockout. And which is exactly what Adesanya does. He caught Robert Whittaker and Paulo Costa with the same punch and right on the jaw, which rotated their heads, caused the brain inside their craniums to move, resulting in a knockout. Which is exactly what is meant by precision over power. You might hit someone with a lot of power, but if it is on the forehead, it won't knock them out. But if you catch someone on the jaw clean, even with a lot less power, chances are you will knock them out. The third thing is that he softens them up before landing that knockdown punch or that seemingly one punch knockout. And this is not as big of a factor as his precision and speed, because it is mostly because of his precision and speed that Adesanya has been knocking people out, but nonetheless it is a factor. Let's take Robert Whittaker's knockout first. He got knocked out and some might say knocked down at the very end of the first round. It was mostly because of the first two things, Adesanya's speed and precision, and the fact that Robert Whittaker's head was already moving backwards. That punch from Adesanya augmented that backward movement of Robert Whittaker's head, resulting in the Reaper's knockout. But the Reaper was saved by the bell. He got up, but then only had 30 seconds to recover from the knockout. The effects of a knockout can last for days to weeks, depending upon the severity. But one thing that is for sure is that you cannot recover completely from a knockout in 30 seconds. In the second round, I'm 100% sure that Bobby Knuckles did not have all his wits about himself. So when Adesanya landed that punch again in the second round, he was just providing finishing touches to the already scrambled brain of Bobby Knuckles. Now let's talk about Paulo Costa. Before that punch landed, Adesanya had hit Costa with a devastating kick. His knee landed flush on Costa's temple. That kick rocked Costa and he was almost knocked out on his feet. He was trying to stay in the fight, but it was clear that that knee hurt him very badly. And then Adesanya again did what he did with Robert Whittaker, and that is he went for the kill. Or maybe it's just steroids, because that right pec of Israel Adesanya was not looking very good. Gynecomastia is one of the symptoms of using steroids, so who knows. Okay, now I just want to talk about the antics of Israel Adesanya after he TKO'd Paulo Costa. And before proceeding further, I just want to say that I'm an Israel Adesanya fanboy, right? I love the guy. I think his striking is just beautiful to watch, and I've been rooting for the guy in all of his UFC fights. But I think what he did after he TKO'd Paulo Costa, and you guys know what I'm referring to, that dry hump, I think that was just unnecessary and disrespectful. He didn't need to do that. I mean, I get what fighters do or say before the fight to sell their fights, like the antics of Conor McGregor and Israel Adesanya. They mock you and just talk trash, and I get it. That is to sell the fight. But what Adesanya did was unnecessary.
They were super necessary.
Because and disrespectful, because the fight was over. He didn't need to sell the fight anymore, and that was just humiliating. I mean, Paulo Costa didn't get the belt because the fight was for the middleweight championship, and I think any fighter's goal is to get the belt. It doesn't matter what division they are fighting in, they want a belt, right? So Paulo Costa didn't win the belt. He lost, and didn't just lose, he got TKO'd, and didn't get just TKO'd, he was dominated for the entirety of the fight. And for a fight of this caliber, when the whole world is watching you and all of the eyes are on you, and you get dominated by your opponent, that must be humiliating in itself. And on top of all of it, you get dry humped after the fight. That thing should give Paulo Costa nightmares. I mean, that thing is on the internet now, and it will exist for the entirety of this world's existence. And well, his children are going to see it, his grandchildren are going to see it, and that thing, man, I mean, I don't know what to say. Paulo Costa must be feeling really horrible. I mean, if that is just insult to injury, right? I mean, the loss must not have felt very good, but now this on top of it all, that's just, man, that's tough on Paulo Costa. And I saw Paulo Costa's video in response to what Adesanya did, and he didn't really know what Adesanya did, but after he watched the video, he was not very happy about it, and rightly so. I mean, but after I watched that video, I mean, I just felt so bad for Paulo Costa. I just wanted to give him a hug and tell him that it's gonna be all alright. It's okay. Don't stress about it, man.
I come here to talk about the action that human trash did. The human trash did after a fight. I didn't see when I was there on the cage, but I saw now. I disapprove 100%. And to
I felt very sympathetic towards Paulo Costa, and you know, as I said, I'm an Israel Adesanya fanboy. But if Paulo Costa manages to work his way back to a title opportunity against Israel Adesanya, you know, after what Adesanya did to Paulo Costa, that dry hump, obviously, I think I would not be too mad if Adesanya got knocked out. And I know that's not gonna happen. I mean, the probability of that happening is just very unlikely. But you know, I would not be mad if Paulo Costa knocked out Israel Adesanya. Man, I just feel horrible for the guy now. And as I said, I'm an Israel Adesanya fanboy, right? And I love the guy in the octagon, but some of the stuff that he does outside the octagon and some of the stuff that he says outside the octagon, man, it's just hard to watch. I mean, his personality has been deteriorating after every fight. He has been improving in the octagon after every fight, but his outside the octagon personality has been deteriorating. I don't know why. And for a supposedly good trash talker, he's just horrible at it. And to be honest, I just don't know how I feel about this dry hump thing. I don't know if it's hilarious or just disrespectful. I'll let you guys decide in the comments section. Tell me what you feel about it, how you feel about it. And well, I mean, Paulo Costa must be suffering from PTSD, because the thing is, in the UFC, every man is trying to determine who is the alpha. And if someone dry humps you, I guess you're not the alpha anymore, man. Israel Adesanya literally made Paulo Costa his bitch. I mean, that's just horrible. As I said, Paulo Costa must be suffering from PTSD now, or I think I'm just making a big deal out of it and it's not weighing on his mind at all.